So are we ready to free Palestine? Are we ready to abolish ICE? Are we ready to win Medicare for all, housing for all, and unions for all? I know that's right.
Yes, that is one Miss Claire Valdez, who was victorious in her congressional primary in New York on Tuesday. We're seeing that a lot. You know, we are seeing a political sea change. I know a lot of older people, a lot of the boomers, not very happy about this in both parties. The Republicans and even a lot of corporate Democrats. I saw James Carville, who, you know, has been on the wrong side of 90% of things for the last 30 years and is a big part of the reason we got into this mess in the first place, thanks to a lot of things that happened during the Clinton era. He's very angry about this and has become very despondent about what we're seeing. We're seeing a reformation of the Democratic Party and a sort of an insurgency. It really starting in New York with Zoran Mamdani, but you're also seeing Claire Valdez, who you just heard in the video right there. Daria Liza Avila Chevalier and former city comptroller Brad Lander all won their primary races for House seats against the odds, making victories. Even more notable is that Chevalier and Brad Lander's opponents were both incumbents. And Chevalier and Valdez are both Democratic Socialists. Wait, let's try that again. Democratic Socialists. Yes. And they are both expected to win in the general election. It will actually double the number of Democratic Socialists in Congress. While Brad Landers considers himself a traditional Democrat, he did run farther to the left than his opponent, U.S. Representative Dan Goldman, who was, you know, who was the incumbent, who had fallen all over himself to wrap himself in AIPAC money and be an establishment corporate puppet. And this isn't just happening in New York. Contrary to what some people are saying, you're not just seeing this happen in New York. One trend political analysts have highlighted is that the left, the Democrats, and particularly left-wing Democrats, are consistently outperforming the 2024 baseline in many 2026 state legislative special elections. Examples include races in Connecticut, Iowa, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Wisconsin. We are seeing candidates who would have never been endorsed by, you know, the mainstream of the Democratic Party being embraced. You have people like Chris Van Hollen, who's a Democrat from Maryland, who endorsed Democrat Abdul El Sayed for U.S. Senate in Michigan. What's happening in Palestine is a very big part of his platform. Abdul is very pro-Palestine, pro-Medicare for all, pro-taxing the wealthy, and in favor of abolishing ICE. So again, you know, just a few years ago, a candidate like this would have been seen as, oh my God, he's taxing, you can't do this. But now you have, like I said, mainstream Democrats like Chris Van Hollen. You have Cori Bush. Remember Cori Bush, who was one of the squad members who got voted out of Congress by AIPAC money? You know, AIPAC came all in and threw, I think it was $15 million towards her opponent, Wesley Bell. You know, some, you know, random Uncle Tom they picked up off the street and just said, go in there and you know, do what we want you to do, boy. Well, Cori Bush has a 71% chance now of winning back her seat in the Democratic primary in Missouri. Another Ethiopian American, or is it Somalian American? Let me see. Is she Ethiopian or is she Somalian? Yes, she is Ethiopian. Ethiopian American. Melat Quiros has a 79% chance of winning in Colorado in the primary. Overall, this reminds me a lot of what you saw with Donald Trump in 2016, where you saw the old guard of the Republican Party, the Bush, Reagan era Republicans trying their best to stave off an insurgency from people who are tired. And in both cases, okay, if you want to talk about the Trump phenomenon and you want to talk about what you're seeing on the left, both of it comes from the same place. People are tired. People are tired of the corporate industrial complex, the military industrial complex, the establishment, AIPAC people who work more for Israel and work more to keep funding Ukraine and these endless wars than they do to fund healthcare and jobs here in America. The only difference is Donald Trump was just a con artist, a scammer. I say this all the time. Donald Trump had an opportunity, the greatest opportunity maybe anybody's ever had, to be a hero and actually be America first. He could have done it. He actually could have done it. But instead, he chose to go down that dark path. Now, a lot of people think that he is compromised by certain compromat from a certain Middle Eastern country with a blue and white flag. Now, I don't know if that's true, but he certainly has acted like it at times. There's a lot of speculation about the Epstein files and what they may have Trump doing in them. Okay? But for whatever reason, Donald Trump has chosen to, instead of being America first and being working class first and bringing jobs back and doing all the stuff he promised he was going to do in 2016, he has chosen to be a corporate establishment. I mean, the guy was a billionaire to begin with. So it's important to say, like, you know, he probably, those people should have probably never trusted Trump in the first place. But a lot of this reminds me of the Trump 2016 rise of Trump and MAGA. Trump broke every rule that the Republicans had, all the Reaganites, the Bushites. He called George W. Bush a liar to his face. Remember that? During the primary, he was sitting there debating George Bush's brother, Jeb Bush, and called George Bush a liar to his face about what happened in Iraq, something that none of the corporate liberals would do. Many of us waited for years for Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama to call George Bush a liar and actually do something about the Bush-Cheney administration that lied us into a war. But nope, they let Donald Trump be the one to call George W. Bush a liar. He questioned NATO, which is something else that the left has been doing for many years. He, you know, I don't agree with this, but he did mock John McCain's prisoner of war status. I would not do that. So many things Donald Trump did that people on the left were screaming for generations, like bringing back Glass-Steagall. People forget Donald Trump put restoring Glass-Steagall back in the platform of a major party. We couldn't get Barack Obama to do it. We couldn't get Hillary Clinton to do it. But it was Donald Trump who in 2016 who said, you know, we're going to put Glass-Steagall in the Republican platform, make commercial banks and investment banks separate again. Now, was he lying? Sure, he was lying. He was lying, of course. But the Democrats didn't even make that effort. They just told everybody, particularly those of us on the left, to sit down and shut up and just let the bankers and AIPAC lord over us until we're you know, goy slaves and wage slaves for the rest of our lives. And he, you know, he broke every rule. I mean, a lot of you remember how politically incorrect Trump was and how insulting he was. And the media many times said he was dead. But he wasn't. He wasn't, because ultimately people were tired and people just wanted to get back at the establishment. And as I've been saying for many years, since me and Jonathan were together, rest in peace, brother. If the left, if the Democrats or whoever do not give working class and poor people a let's burn it down option, then yeah, people will keep going to MAGA. If the Democrats and don't put up a real obstacle to Wall Street, the military-industrial complex, to AIPAC, yeah, people are going to keep going to MAGA. And now we're actually seeing the formation of a third, maybe right-wing party, another right-wing party, with Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene and all these other people who are mad. A lot of that energy is going to go to them, because ultimately people are sick of the status quo. They voted for a black man named Barack Hussein Obama, who was considered the most liberal man in Congress, because they were sick of the status quo. But most of us got the bait and switch. Once again, Barack Obama became pro-Wall Street, pro-military industrial complex, gave Israel $30 billion of our money. Nobody voted for him to do that. Nobody voted for him to do that. But that's just kind of what it is. The elites don't know how much the working classes hate them. You know, and so what I got a lot from what we saw in these primaries on Tuesday, AIPAC and Ukraine are losing. All those people who helped maintain the military-industrial complex to send all this money to the wars in the Middle East and to Ukraine, those people are getting swept up out of town. Especially if you're a Democrat. Beware. Also, one of the women who won, Daria Liza Avila Chevalier, who the mainstream Democratic Party tried to kneecap because she said a lot of things about Kamala Harris and Joe Biden that were not flattering. I won't repeat them, but they weren't flattering, and some of them I can't say on the radio. And so everybody thought she would lose because the establishment had came out against her. But just like Mamdani, just like Valdez, just like Brad Lander, she won a definitive victory over the sellout corporate politician she was running against. And let me just say, unlike AOC, DAC seems to be about that life. And I think she is a political star that we're going to be seeing for a time to come. Don't underestimate what data centers and AI has had to do. A lot of the Democrats have not met the moment. The mainstream of the Democratic Party have not met the moment on AI and data centers. And people are enraged about that. So again, don't be surprised if you keep seeing this. The data centers, people's utility bills skyrocketing, the endless wars, the slavery to AIPAC. You know, what we're seeing is possibly a 2016 Trump level destruction of a mainstream party, sort of reconfiguration. And it is because, as I've been saying for many years, the Democrats are out of touch. They've been out of touch. I'm sorry, boomers. A lot of y'all are out of touch with what's going on. You got young people who will never buy a house, who will never get married, who will never have children. They are not going to keep voting to be wage slaves and goy slaves and have, the endless wars so that the politicians you vote for can have endless wars and a mass surveillance party over and over again. It's not going to happen. You have a radicalized generation now. A big part of the reason this is happening, the public, contrary to what people think, the public supports progressive policies. 74% of likely voters support expanding Medicare to cover vision, dental, and medical. 73% support cutting the cost of prescription drugs in half by making sure Americans pay no more than what they pay in Europe and Canada. 69% support making the wealthy and large corporations pay their fair share of taxes. 62% support expanding Social Security benefits by making the wealthy pay the same tax rate as the working class. 57% support instituting a cap on rent increases. 50% support reestablishing a child tax credit, which expired in 2022, that provided most parents with up to $300 per month for each child. Okay? What? I'm just being real with you folks. 51% support building at least 2 million units of affordable housing. Like, Seriously. 63% support establishing a Medicare for all single-payer healthcare system, guaranteeing healthcare to all of America. 59% of likely voters supported making public colleges and universities tuition free. 57 supported passing the PRO Act, which would make it easier for Americans to join unions. Y'all are out of touch. Y'all are out of touch. We are not out of touch. Y'all are out of touch. The voters have already told you what they want. Now, why is this? Why is there so much rage? Why is there so much resentment? Well, it just came out this week. As of the latest Federal Reserve data of the third quarter in 2025, we just found that the richest 1% of U.S. households controlled 31.7% of all household wealth, roughly $55 trillion. The bottom 90% of Americans collectively hold about the same amount of wealth, making the top 1%'s wealth approximately equal to that of the bottom 90% combined. 90% combined. The top 1% of wealth of U.S. households own more than 90%, own the same amount as 90% of American households. 90%. This level of wealth concentration is the highest recorded since the Federal Reserve began tracking the figures. The broader trend is that wealth has become increasingly concentrated over the past several decades, with the top 1% share rising while the shares held by lower and middle wealth households have generally stagnated or declined. Well, no blank. I can't say what I want to say, but no blank. Humans, no blank. And then you wonder why people are mad? You wonder why people are in the streets? You wonder why you're seeing this rush across the country? This is why. This is why. Well, before I go to a break, let me go to this caller. Yo, caller, what's up?
Well, hey there.
Hey, what's up?
Well, just trying to tell you how right on you and straight you are, and I appreciate your show all the time.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I want to share something with you. We're not very deep in our linguistic skills here typically, right?
Right.
And so it's neoliberals.
Yes, yes.
That Ronald Reagan was, that Nixon was, that the Bushes were, that Clinton was.
Yep.
They're called neoliberals.
Yes, yes.
And what does that really mean? To privatize all the public good and control the entire market.
Bang.
So how are we ever going to get control of it if the Democrats, who say they're whatever they say, but they're really neoliberals?
Yes.
So our communities are full of people that are really Reagan guys that are now in the 21st century talking about like how they want it better. Mm-hmm. How do we do that if we don't even have a language to actually negotiate it? Mm. I just, I'm going, wow, let's get, equity guys up here to buy up everything so they can control the property and never talk about labor at all.
Nope.
Just go to school.
Yep.
And the fact of the matter is that what the reading comp level in our country, half the population has a reading comprehension level of a sixth grader or less.
Yes.
That's half the population.
Mm-hmm.
So how their critical thought process is pretty shallow. It's in fundamental belief system.
Mm-hmm.
And that's as far as they go. So I've been out here, as you have, for the last 30, 25 years talking about the same stuff, And the majority of people today act like I'm invading their privacy.
They will.
They will, of course they will. So I'm not being invited to any Sunday dinners because of it, right?
I would imagine not.
I am not. I can guarantee you of that. And so, you just have to be, listen, if you're a man, you're a woman, you believe in the truth, to teach your children well, you better tell the truth yourself.
I heard that.
And look here, we're all about here. We're about, about the celebrityhood of who you are. Mm-hmm. And we don't do reason. We rationalize everything. We're not about reason. We're about rationalization of things. And what worse could go wrong? I mean, in Indiana, the average wage in Indiana is $40,000 a year.
It is. It is.
That's poverty wages.
Yes, it is.
And so minimum wage is only, $15,000 a year?
Yeah. Yep.
And so, again, the neoliberals will never address this in any way except for you say you're the failure.
Yep. Just study harder.
And so the system failed half of the children, half of them.
Absolutely.
For the last 40 years.
Absolutely.
And that's been driven by state mandatory law.
Yep.
And I'm listening today, Latrice's talking about they want to put Bible verses in the classroom.
Yeah, in Texas, Greg Abbott actually just signed a law saying that they have to learn the 10 Commandments in Texas.
And is it that against the First Amendment?
Yep. That people are saying hopefully it won't stand up in court, but you never know with this Supreme Court.
I mean, how many Supreme Court justices did Mr. Trump appoint?
I think 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we better vote.
Yeah. Thank you for your call, brother.
Hey, yes, sir. Thanks a lot.
It's all good. Before I get out of here, again, if you think Vic is tripping, he is not. Okay? He's not tripping. This is Barack Obama basically admitting that he is a Reagan Republican, that's where his politics lie. That's why I've always been very critical of him.
The truth of the matter is that my policies are so mainstream that, if I had said the same policies that I have back in the 1980s, I'd be considered a moderate Republican.
Yep, and he is right. He is 100% correct. He'd be considered a moderate Republican in the 80s, just like the Clintons too. I remember, I remember hearing when I was a kid, hearing people talk about Ronald Reagan, especially black people. I don't remember black people liking Ronald Reagan, for the most part. Not most working class and poor black people I knew. But yet you vote for people with his policies. Just because they look like you or they tell you something you want to hear. Please. All right, folks. When we get back, we're going to get into another thorny subject. ICE! ICE, ICE, baby. We'll be right back after these here on Straight Outta Cannon with me, Scott Cannon. Please stay with us.